Hi everyone, thanks for registering for today's webinar. We're going to get getting started in just a couple of moments, so hopefully you can all hear me okay. If you still please make sure your microphones are muted for the webinar, that would be great. We will be recording it today and that just helps keep the sound quality high. Okay, so let's get started. My name is Luisa Robertson and I'm Research Solutions Director at NMR. I'll be taking you through a short presentation today which should last around 15 minutes. Please make sure your microphones are muted. If you have any questions, do share them with us using the chat panel if you can access on the top of your screen and the chat on the right hand side, or by using the Twitter hashtag MMR webinar. I have to apologise in advance, there are red arrows practicing above our offices today, so if there is any background noise from our end, that's what it is. Hopefully it won't interrupt us too much today. Okay, so the session today is the fourth in a series of 5, all looking at innovation. We've previously discussed internal and external barriers to innovation that many manufacturers are presented with, various sources of inspiration for innovation, and the building blocks of successful innovation, all drawing on our vast experience of working predominantly with food, drink, household and personal care manufacturers. All the previous webinars are available to download on our website. Today I'm going to run through 4 ways in which consumer research can actually impede chances of innovation success, and some of the steps that we take at MMR to prevent this happening. So we've identified 4 common research traps, which I will now run through in turn. So the first is an over-reliance on measuring liking. Too often research is simplified into a few core metrics with decisions based on common questions such as liking or purchase intent, which it can be argued is really just another way of capturing liking. However, it's widely recognised that liking alone doesn't predict behaviour or purchase decisions, and the role of System 1 and 2 thinking is widely documented. So we believe research needs to go further in order to understand the connection your product might make with consumers once it's been launched. With reliance on liking, it's just too easy for research to simply become a beauty contest, and this results in familiar ideas rising to the top because they're just easier for consumers to react to in this kind of context. By only capturing superficial appeal, we are missing part of the picture and not understanding the full potential for a new idea. This can lead to great ideas being screened out through typical concept testing research because it's not hitting these liking scores, whereas actually we're not fully understanding how a product might perform in market. So at MMR, we strive to go beyond liking in all we do. Whilst reliably measuring emotions through research is really difficult to say the least, we've developed a suite of tools to measure the deeper meaning that people attach to products, packs and brands via their conceptual associations. And this provides us with more of the picture in terms of the overall consumer experience and avoids the reliance on direct liking questions. Liking is still important, it's something people can't easily articulate, but using brand phonics we can go beyond this, just to fill in more of the gaps in our understanding of consumer motivation and how likely they are to purchase. And this can be brought to life by this example from a case study of a project that we ran ourselves at MMR on the dark chocolate category. So we asked consumers to test dark chocolate blind, so the brands were not revealed, and we simply asked them to tell us how much they liked the product. You can see from the results here that Bourneville Deeply Dark was an extremely appealing product, gaining 6.8 on the 10-point scale for liking, and standing out from the rest of the competitor set in terms of how much it was liked. Green and Black, on the other hand, scored 4.7, so polarising at best in terms of our sample. However, the interesting fact is that Green and Blacks is a big seller in the market in the UK, whilst the deeply dark product is actually no longer on the market. Based on liking alone, it's hard to understand that result, given the difference between the two scores. We use brand phonics to understand the emotional conceptualizations that people have of the product, again, based on blind testing. So once they taste the products without knowing the brands, which terms they would associate with the products themselves. You can see that the conceptualizations associated with forms of deeply dark are very different to green and blacks. They're comforting and complicated, traditional, etc., compared to powerful, serious, confident, aggressive. So the conceptual meaning associated with the two products is completely different. If you look at conceptualizations associated with deeply dark, you'd think they're very positive. There's positive terms coming through. So again, this doesn't really help us understand why the product's no longer in the market. However, when you compare the conceptualizations with the deeply dark product itself, compared to the deeply dark brand, you can see a real disconnect. So the product's communicating comforting, uncomplicated, traditional, easygoing, whereas people expect from the branding a product that's luxurious, powerful, confident, sophisticated, and sensual. The term is more in line with the dark chocolate category overall, and indeed with the green and black product we saw earlier. This shows a complete disconnect between the expectations of the brand setting up and the delivery of the product itself. However, in traditional research, we wouldn't capture this information. We've just seen that the product achieved high liking scores, therefore not being able to predict fully the actual performance in the market. And this can be highlighted through this map, where we can see that green and black products and brands are much more closely aligned. So the conceptualizations associated with green and black brands is being delivered by the product experience itself, whereas the deeply dark product and brands sit in completely different arenas. So the sweet, creamy, and more milk chocolate style of deeply dark product was leading to this disconnect with its brand attributes. And this helps to explain why green and blacks, despite getting lower scores in terms of blind liking results, is a real success in market, because the product delivery just completely lives up to people's expectations at a brand and packaging level. The second common research trap is targeting mainstream liking scores and average appeal levels. It's the pursuit of the average total sample appeal scores. And in today's saturated markets, it's harder and harder to achieve cut-through with products that are simply liked by many. Chances are that there's already something available which they also like and suits their needs perfectly well. We've discussed the innate human bias to prefer the familiar back in webinar 1, and that barrier to success really comes into play here. Their products are launched on the back of achieving minimum liking scores in basic research. Coupled with this is a tendency to rely on historic norms to gauge potential success. Whilst norms, of course, are undoubtedly helpful to provide context, so many factors can influence ratings achieved in research, so they should be used with a degree of caution. We need to go beyond liking to understand how a product compares to its likely competitors, the role it's going to play in consumers' lives, and the deeper impact it will have on brand perceptions, rather than simply targeting minimum liking levels. So at MMR, we use segmentation. We understand the importance of digging deeper to understand patterns of preference that might be hidden in data. There really is no such thing as the average consumer, so relying on average scores is a risky approach. Segmentation of data can reveal whether there are groups of people who really love your product and how it performs relative to their existing competitive set. We'd argue this provides a better indication of in-market potential and targeting direction than just aiming for an average liking level at a total sample basis. But it can require bravery on the part of manufacturers to ignore total sample averages and pursue potentially a more niche opportunity. So this example shows where segmentation could really help reveal hidden opportunities. An example from a project we conducted on pasta sauce. So at a total sample level, these are actually quite flat results. So most of the prototypes that we were testing performed fairly similarly when looking at the average results across the total sample. Little to differentiate versus two competitors we tested, or the current product that the client had in the market. When we segmented our sample, segmenting purely based on their reactions to the products that they tried, we revealed 3 segments hidden by the total sample average results. So you can see here much more discrimination in terms of how the 3 segments rate the products. The segment 1 showing strong liking for U64, whereas S71, which is rejected by segment 1, is the favoured product for segment 2. So whilst S71 might have been completely rejected at a total sample level, being the least liked product, actually these results reveal that there is a group of people who really like this product offering. What's also clear from the segmentation is that it's not possible to satisfy the majority of the population with just one product formulation, because their pattern of preference was completely opposing. U64, as I mentioned, would be the safest bet, because it's a strong performer amongst segment 1, the largest segment, but also performs well amongst segment 3. However, this would require the client to buy into the fact that actually they won't be able to satisfy segment 2 with this one product route. A dual product strategy would be needed in terms of reaching more of the market and fully maximise potential, enabling to appeal to 2 different tastes and preference segments. By profiling the segments in terms of their demographics, their brand usage and category usage provides useful information for targeting. The third barrier is the lack of flexibility and creativity. So we discussed this as a barrier to innovation as a whole, but unfortunately it can also prevent the best research being conducted to truly meet individual project requirements in pursuit of comparability. So not being able to be flexible in terms of your research design to make sure it best suits your objectives, and really seeking comparability with previous research can actually end up with the research being a barrier to getting the best results and the most useful results to help aid your innovation chances of success. Too often, the research spend is skewed towards later stages in the process. Often, the final validation is where a lot of the budget is skewed towards. But by this point, it's too late to remedy any issues. So we recommend that our clients spend more time in the early stages of an innovation project to learn from consumers how to shape the proposition and make sure that all elements of the proposition are designed in parallel to increase chances of success in the long run, meaning that the final validation stage can be just that. We know that everything's been put in place by that point to ensure the product will be a success, and that can just be a final exercise to really understand the potential associated with it. We see cuts in research due to both cost and time being squeezed. This can cause inferior research to be progressed, where objectives aren't being properly considered and the research designed appropriately to maximise the insight gleaned, and therefore the research doesn't deliver the information needed to really help innovation be a success. And too often research ends up just being a box-ticking exercise. So it's something people know they have to do to get through to the next stage gate. And therefore it's oversimplified just to meet the measures that are required at that stage, rather than using it to really build on your innovation idea and eventual success. It's therefore really important to design research bespoke to meet the objectives of any given brief, and to be able to adapt what you do to match the business objectives behind the specific innovation in question. Of course, it's essential to have comparability across tests, And of course, we appreciate that efficiencies in cost and time come from adopting fairly similar approaches across different innovation projects. However, we advocate comparability, but not at the sacrifice of creativity and actually appropriateness for each individual project. We try to see research as a means of creating better products and not just evaluating stimulus. So really using consumer feedback in creative ways to make sure that we are fully understanding how a proposition can be made better and therefore increase the chances of success in the long run. So often we look to combine qual and quant approaches, a mixture of both direct and indirect questions to really get the most out of consumers. It comes back to this, getting the full picture. Bringing consumers to the heart of your business decisions and connect with them with your process via co-optimization sessions to really make them get the most out of consumers and help them improve your innovation in the long run. The final research area we see is a lack of joined-up thinking. This often comes to play when there's different agencies and different teams throughout the process, so insight gets lost between the different stages and falls through the gaps. So it's important that even when different agencies are being used to offer different levels of specialisation throughout the innovation process, that learnings are shared. So findings aren't duplicated, but they can be built upon, but also that we can all remain really single-minded in terms of what we're trying to achieve with our innovation and what's best going to deliver against consumer needs. Linked to this lack of joined-up thinking, there's often an issue where there's no consistent marker to gauge performance throughout the process. So even if we start with a very single-minded idea of what this proposition should look like, the gateposts can change. And if different teams pick up the innovation through the process, slight tweaks to the concept positioning may actually mean that the product and pack that are being developed in parallel no longer fit with the newly developed concept. So it's important to have regular opportunities to touch base to make sure everything is on track. But this is where consumer research can also help by having consistent measures across all stages of the proposition and development. We can use consumers as the marker to make sure everything is aligned. Too often as well, a lot of effort is put into developing the concept and the comms at the start of the process. But then different teams pick up the product and packaging, and they're not, too often we see that they're not given the same level of importance as the comms and the concept. So again, gauging consumer expectations from a very early stage in terms of what the product and pack should look like based on the concept will help ensure that all departments can stay on track and the output will be a stronger proposition in the long run. We've also seen that the in-store environment too often is left to the later stages of research, whereas actually the competitive context might make or break your new innovation. So this is something that should be brought into play at a much earlier stage. And it's possible to get consumers to consider your new product in an in-store environment from a much earlier stage. This prevents there being any nasty surprises when you get to the final validation stage and understand that your product doesn't have the power to displace competitor product. So we do work with clients right across the NPD cycle and have developed tools specifically to provide a common benchmark throughout. So for example, our brand performance profiling enables us to benchmark every single element of the proposition back to the desired concept profile throughout the different stages of research, giving us a consistent marker point to make sure that everything is being developed in line with consumer expectations. But also when we're not working with a client on research projects across all stages of the NPD cycle, we endeavour to understand what's gone before. So attending qualitative focus group debriefs where we haven't run the research ourselves helps ensure that we have that full picture. And as manufacturers, it's important to challenge your agencies to make sure they are building on what you've done before and not starting from scratch each time. And this can help ensure a more linked up process throughout. So those are my 4 common research traps. At MMR, we've adopted core principles, especially to overcome these barriers, and we use them to design and guide the research we do. And our speciality is helping clients bring the brand promise to life through products and packaging that are completely aligned with consumer expectations. We know the principles of effective NPD and therefore ensure that our market research enables us to add value to the innovation process, rather than simply blocking creativity. Okay, so that's drawing to the end of today's webinar. And just to let you know that next week we'll be conducting the final webinar, which will be looking in a bit more detail at some of MMR solutions. So we'll be looking at top tips for getting the most out of your consumers to shape your proposition, and also ways that we might approach consumer research across the NPD cycle with some case studies to show how our clients have benefited from partnering with MMR. Okay. So Sophia, I see that you've sent me through a question. So if it's okay, I will reply to you privately in terms of your question, just so I can give it a bit of thought and get back to you with a useful reply. So I shall be in touch after we've logged off from here today. If anyone has any further questions, then please feel free to either email me or give me a call. The details are currently on the screen. You can also register for our final webinar on the website at mmr-research.com/events, and the downloads from the previous webinars are also available to download on the website too. Okay, so thanks everybody for participating today, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye.